20 minutes to time. It's the Leadership Forum's time. And of course, we have our panelists already here with us. 3 of them. We're eagerly waiting for one to join us as well. And today's topic is all about a humble beginning. A humble beginning. We have very compelling, inspiring stories from our panelists. Of course, we know right now what has been fixated in the media is all about the dynasties and the hustlers. But who is a real hustler, right? Do you have a true story that we can tell? This has been a Ballab to Kashmir story, a rag to riches story that can inspire Kenyans this morning. And we have them here. They'll tell us more about their stories. And of course, we want to hear also what they have to tell us how they got their wealth, where they are right now, in their businesses, their career. And I can see Dr. Cesar Mwangi say, but wealth is different. It could be wealth in knowledge, wealth, yeah. Who says that you're not wealthy? Maybe you can define wealth, yeah? And we have also Dr. Cesar is the director of a Center for Personal Leadership. Also, we do have with us Anthony Ndung'u. Anthony, I'm trying to see where I actually kept this particular... You can remind me. He's the CEO and founder
of Green Pencils Limited.
Yes, that is a Green
Pencils Limited.
Green Pencils Limited. Yes. And we have also Professor Wajackoyah, George Wajackoyah is here. He's a lecturer at USIU and also an advocate of the High Court to tell us more about also his story. They got inspiring stories this morning. So when we talk about humility, a humble beginning, what really conjures up or what really comes up to your mind? Let's begin with you, Professor George Wajackoyah.
The very much for giving me this opportunity. And good morning, Kenyans. I think I should start with footnoting myself. I've been around the world, just came back from the US and UK, where I was a motivational speaker. Given the fact that my background speaks volumes. I was chokora in Nairobi, and then I became a policeman, police constable. Then I spent a little time in jail for political reasons. Then I became a refugee in UK.
That you will tell us on the lectern there, but we just want to hear about humility. What really, when you talk about humility?
Being humble is the key to success, humbleness. Especially if you have brought yourself up or if you have had parents who also had the same traits. So humility is the key to success.
Humility is the key to success.
Yes.
All right, let's hear from Anthony.
I would say being humble is whether you're successful financially or otherwise. The way you treat people should always be the same. What I mean is, whether I'm in the streets or at the dam site or in State House, the way I relate with people should always be the same. There shouldn't be, the way I'm talking to Debarl, I'll carry you because I know you in a certain way, and then when I speak to somebody, another mwananchi in the streets, you look down on them. Just be true to everybody. Just be yourself.
Just be yourself.
Be yourself, yes.
All right, Dr. Cesar, just be yourself.
Yes.
Just be yourself this morning.
Yes, absolutely. I will be myself, certainly. I can only be myself. We cannot be anybody else. And I think you mentioned the word humility, and that's a very beautiful virtue. It's a virtue that is related to especially our relationship with others. Okay? Recognizing that we are never better than others, we are never greater than others, and we should see the God in others and therefore respect everybody around us. So humility has got 2 parts to it: relationship with others, and most important also recognizing that first and foremost we are created creatures, and therefore there is nothing to make us feel that we are very great, because God is the only creator who is great at the end of the day. So that should always remind us that we are who we are, not because we are special, but because of the benevolence of the Creator. And therefore, in that respect, we need humility all the time.
Humility. Also, joining us this morning, I won't let you catch your breath because, yeah, you came late. Yes. So I'll just throw you right into the deep end. Yeah, we're talking about a humble beginning. And of course, when you hear about humility, what really comes to your mind? This is Dr. Job Mogire.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for welcoming me. I mean, humility is it's complex in my view, because I think it's possible to be humble about your pride or proud about your humility. You're so humble that you you pride yourself up in being humble. I think if I speak for myself, I think there is a challenge whenever you start experiencing success, to begin counting that success as a result of your own effort, your own merits, of beginning to open the doors for you, and you start building up and counting and expanding your own territories because of that, and therefore you end up losing the genuineness and authenticity with which you are doing what you were doing previously. You start doing it now, it becomes a pursuit of the applause. That's how I see humility, as the risk of losing humility, such that for as long as you and I are clear that it's possible to lose it because of beginning to pursue the applause, beginning to do things for other people to recognize us, to acknowledge us, then we lose the authentic motivation that will truly keep us humble.
Fantastic, fantastic. Right, so we want to actually delve deeper into the program, hearing what you have to tell us about your story, a humble beginning. How can you inspire Kenyans who are watching this morning when you give your story? We've heard from Wajackoyah. He's telling us, yeah, a grave digger, he's been a policeman. You know, it's all hodgepodge of things that made what he is today. And of course, we want to give him also a handy opportunity to tell us how also he has, you know, journeyed through his life to where he is today. Also, we can hear from Tony. He has a compelling story, we know. And many people don't really know about the road studs, yeah? You will tell us more about the road studs, because the road studs that you have in our roads today, this is a guy that is behind that particular project in the country. And maybe you do not know what a road stud is. Maybe I can remind you, when you're actually maybe driving at night and you see those studs, I don't know how to call them. Yes, and they are reflecting lights on the road to make you to make sure that you keep on your lane. Those are the road studs. And this is a gentleman that actually came up with that particular project here in the country. He's here also to tell us why he actually came up with that, and also to give us just a background about his story as well. He's got a compelling story as well. Dr. Caesar is not new to us. Of course, he's been here several times, I should say, and he's here to tell us even his journey up to where he is today. A humble beginning, what does it mean to him? And we have also Job Mogire. He's a medical doctor, but also he's a motivational speaker and a life coach. He's here to tell us more about his story as well. Very compelling story from the rural up to Harvard's school, Harvard University. He's here to tell us more about his story as well. That you can actually rise above any insurmountable challenges that are stacked up against you if you have, you know, the grit, the determination, and of course also the faith to keep on the course, or to keep on course with that particular journey. So I want just to lay some ground rules, maybe for the benefit of Job that has not been here. I have my bell and I have my cards. Right? World Cup is coming up. So you have the red card, the yellow. But this is just to make sure that we keep time as well. So each of you will have 6 minutes to just talk on the podium right there. So midway, 3 minutes, I'm going to raise the yellow flag. Just to tell you, of course, you're halfway, so you should be preparing how also you can wind up your topic. And red, of course, is just to alert you, yes, a minute remaining. Then if you go overboard, yeah, I'm going to ring the bell, right? So, and if you refuse to come out from the lectern, I'm going to come and drag you away from the lectern, right? So we'll give each of you 6 minutes. You have the microphone there on the lectern. All of you, most of you actually, except for Job Mogire, you tethered to the mic. So remember actually to remove your mic and just put it at the back of your seat. Then you'll walk to the lectern, because we have another mic on the lectern there. But all of you, I know, you have lapel mics, so you can just easily walk to the lectern as well. So we want just to begin right away, before we take a short break, beginning to hear your stories. And why can't we just begin with Professor Wajackoyah just walking to the lectern and to tell us his story as well, to give us just briefly what is the life of Wajackoyah, who is Wajackoyah, and how has he journeyed to the person that he is today. So you have also your camera 2, that you can look at that particular camera and speak to Kenyans as well. So your 5 minutes, or the 6 minutes, I should say, begins now.
Thank you very much, fellow panelists and Kenyans in general. When I start speaking, I think I take 1 hour to introduce myself. But because I've been given 6 minutes, I'll go straight away to the point. My name, as I've been told, George Wajackoyah. I come from Mumias. I'm of the Wanga tribe, Murono subclan. I grew up here in the streets of Nairobi, but before I came here, I had an issue with the family. And as you know, that divorce is a very, very serious issue. My parents divorced, and I was left in the custody of my grandparents, who were actually literate, but very sober in with a Christian mindset. While I was young, I was conscripted by a python while taking care of our animals. And while she was about to swallow me, I was actually rescued by other people, so I have a big scar, python skin scar on myself. And then at the age of 8, I was again hit by lightning, whereby 2 women died, and I survived that, and I have a big burning. And I don't know even how the police recruited me. Maybe God came and closed their faces with a piece of knee, because God had a destiny for me. So in the process, I was looking for where my mother went, and I came across a lorry driver, the coast hauliers driver. He was a man of Somali origin who drove me to Nairobi with the purpose of taking me to his homeland in Garissa to take care of cattle. And I was also told later on when he died that he was a sodomist. He wanted to sodomize me. He used to sodomize young boys. Unfortunately, that did not occur to me. So when he brought me in his home in Nairobi, a little Minchi house in Kaloleni, he went to buy milk, and I'm told he was killed. And then that's when I became a street boy. So while as a street boy in this town, I walked, ate in the bins, and did everything that a street boy does, including smoking glue, whereby later on I had to become an alcoholic, something that I lived with for so many years, something that almost made me to lose my life, something that almost put me in jail in later years when I became who I am today. Then the Hare Krishna Hare Rama rescued me, and I lived in the temple. They took me to school. And many years down the line, I was rescued by the Kikuyus from Muranga, those who used to own kiosks along Grogan Road and Sian Cinema. They gave me food. And Kamodo came across, and he looked at me, and then he looked at me again in the temple, and I became a pigeon boy for Kamodo, J.J. Kamodo, who was by then a minister for higher education, while Professor Ngeno was the minister for basic education. The Kamoto educated me. He paid my fees when I passed Form 4, and he said, look, go and study. So I went to Mumias boys from Nairobi, did my A-levels, who were pioneers. I got 6 points. I got 1 principal and 2 subsidiaries. That was not enough to go to the university. The same Kamoto took me to Kiganjo, Kenya Police College. But before that, I had a stand as a teacher, where I taught the likes of Jakoya Midio and Mr. Jacob Mtula, and some others that can verify this. So after that, I worked as a police constable in Central Police Station. Then later on, I was taken back to Kenya Police College for inspectorate. When I came back, I was enlisted into the security intelligence, where I worked with Kanyotu as a personal assistant. Details another day. Then Dr. Uko was killed, and I was actually tasked to investigate what actually happened to this man. And that briefly ended me in jail because I could not accept otherwise. That's a story for another day. Then I ended up with Smith Hempston, who came to rescue me. He took me to the UK through Lufthansa airline, a cargo plane. While in the UK, I became a grave digger, a security guard, and went to 5 law schools. I know I've been shown a yellow card. My story is very long. It's coming up in the book. And then from there, I became a lawyer in the UK. Then I went to the US and joined law school there, Baltimore University, before I went to American Heritage University. I became an attorney, and I've been teaching law. And what makes me to be here today is to tell Kenyans that, look, you can be a millionaire in your brain, you can be a millionaire in your pockets, but remember one thing, remember where you're coming from. Do what you can do. I've come back in this country, and the first task I did was to sponsor 28 police officers, because that's where I belonged, and I knew what police officers go through. And I'm thankful to God that some of them have done very well. I have sponsored about 52 students. The last one was 2 weeks ago, where I raised $1 million shillings for a Maasai girl who had been dropped out of school. She's back in school, and I'm appealing to fellow Kenyans that you can do things silently, but please reach out, and reach out absolutely. Hope my 6 minutes are over, and thank you very much.
You've got 2 minutes to go.
Oh yes, I'm told I have 2 minutes. Now, what makes me again smile? The best thing you can do is, even if you have a problem, down there, and I've been a motivational speaker around the world, including Australia. And recently I just came back from UC Davis in California. And I'm told my friend here went to Harvard. I will think I will have a chat with him because I also went there, but not as a full-time student, but as a speaker. If you believe in yourself, if you have what we call beingness, the best thing you can come out is the independent entrepreneurship approach, like what my colleague here has gone through. Can you believe and develop something that can help you develop the nation? Or do you want to enter somebody's bus where you'll get a driver and the doors open for you? Why can't you sit down and say, look, I want to do something very unique. I want to reach out there and I want to help somebody on the street and I want to share what I have with him. I remember when I came back to declare myself for the presidency, I was taken as a joke. But because I know that I'm a winner, my mind is still geared towards that. You can see Maduro, the president of Venezuela. He was just a bus driver. And if you look at his predecessor was a shoeshine boy. If you look at the current president of India, the current prime minister of India, he used just to sell tea. So success is in you if you have got what we call the believe in me syndrome. Believe in me so that you can create your own destiny. Don't create destiny or don't let others create your destiny that they have actually nurtured from a point of... Thank you very much. My time is gone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Professor Wajackoyah. Of course, his time is up, and we'll be hearing a lot from him when we sit down, of course, and just interrogate some of his, the whole of his story to just tell us more on where he's coming from. We've heard he's been also an intelligence officer as well. That is something maybe that is a surprise to many of us also here in the studio this morning. But welcome back. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation on a humble beginning. What is your story? We've heard from Professor George Wajackoyah about his story, how he began to where he is today. This is just to inspire you. Maybe you're waking up this morning and you're feeling down in the dumps. And maybe when we share some of our stories, we can help build each other. Right now on the lectern, we have with us Ndung'u, who is the founder of Green Pencils Limited. Also is the inventor of the Infinity Road Studs and the Infinity Bonding Agent. For the first time in Kenya, a Kenyan has come up with a homegrown innovative solution and products that can improve night driving visibility, introduce and provide advanced road warnings, no more hitting bumps, driving into junctions, etc., etc. Also, he's a brand Kenya ambassador for innovation and entrepreneurship. He has never been employed, he says, and his favorite quote is, evil succeeds when good people choose to do nothing. Let's hear from Ndung'u. You've got 5 minutes beginning now, sir.
I thought it was 6.
6? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Beginning.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Anthony Ndung'u from Juja constituency. I'm the founder and CEO of Green Pencils Limited. Now, unfortunately, on the 27th of August 2006, my brother Andrew Kanyi was involved in a road accident. It was at night and it was raining, and unfortunately, he died. At the scene of the accident, I found only his car. Therefore, I asked the policeman, was it a hit and run? Where is the other car? Then the police said that at night, when it rains, many people die through no fault of their own. Then they told me, your brother must have swerved hard to avoid an oncoming car, which was on his side of the road. So I asked them, and how would you know this, considering you're not here? And they told me, look at the skid marks. He did not come off the road gently. He swerved hard. So he must have swerved hard to avoid something. Unfortunately, where he swerved, there was a big hole. The car rolled. He was much taller than me. When the roof caved in, broke his neck, and he passed away. The wife, she was a bit shorter. The headrest was above her. She survived. When we went to hospital, she was only given 4 Panadols, told if you feel pain, then you can take the Panadols. After the funeral, I remembered what the police, I'll never forget that, what they said, that many people die through no fault of their own. So after the funeral, I went back to the traffic police and I asked them what they meant by that. And that's when they told me that in Kenya, most of us, we drive through from memory or via approximation. You approximate where the road is. And to prove the fact, he asked me, have you ever, when you're driving, when you're driving, have the tires of your car on the left side come off the road. And I remembered one time when I was coming from Nyeri, not only the left tires come off the road, after some time I felt the right tires coming off the road, meaning I had left my lane, gone to the other lane, I was getting off the road, I didn't know about it. Another one asked me, have you ever hit a bump? That's a common occurrence. So I asked them, then what needs to be done? And that's when they told me that we either use street lights or road studs. So why don't we use them? They told me, kijana unauliza maswali mingi sana, enda kwa ministry. At the ministry, I was informed we can't use street lights over the entire road network because they are stolen, the cables and the poles for scrap purposes. And for road studs, the plastic studs and the metallic studs, they all have their challenges, and that's why they're not used much in Kenya. So I told them, then let's try to make them. I remember some of the design engineers, they told me that as of 2006, at that time, for more than 10 years, the other people from Europeans, Asians, local engineers and scientists, they've been trying to make, and the best that had been made broke at 3.8 tons. And the pass mark is 25 tons. So when I said, let's just try and fail, than not try, one of them told me, if people with so many resources could have managed that, what can we do? Anyway, I remember one time when I was at home, now that was in November 2006, it was raining, and I woke up with a start. And you know that sweat that goes down your neck? Just one single bead, and it doesn't disappear. That went through me. And then, what made me wake up was, I realized, today, there'll be a few people who will wake up, just like they will woke up on the night of, or rather on 27th August. Personally, I lost my bro. My mom lost the son. The children lost the father. The wife lost the husband. If it will be a girl or a lady, she'll either be somebody's sister, mother, wife, or daughter. They will die through no fault of their own. And then that's when I decided, let me see what I can do. Let me try and fail, let me know I've tried and failed, than not try at all. The first stud I made broke at 1.8 tons, and the engineers were happy. They told me, had I added an extra 100, had it gone to 1.9 tons, I would have reached half of what the others had made at 3.8 tons. Then from there, I kept on developing them. To cut a long story short, 3 years later, I made some studs. When I took them for testing, they reached 42.3 tons without breaking. And the pass mark, the minimum required was 25 tons. And in Kenya, as of 2008 at that time, the best stud tested from the States had broken at 28 tons. I was very excited. Now, I had made the red, the yellow, and the white. But in Kenya, since 1963, we've only been using the white and the yellow. Therefore, the red could not be tested. However, the ministry spoke with people from KEBS. They decided to use the UCA standards, that's the United Kingdom Accreditation Scope standards. When mine were tested, they were found to be between 3 to 5 times better than the European standards. And I was very excited about that, and I do thank God for that. Many people told me that, oh, you must be very bright, you must be a genius or something. No, nothing like that. That was just the grace of God. He's the one who showed me how those should be done. We tested them on Kiambu Road in 2008 and also Maimahi Road. They worked very well. In 2009, we put them on Komarok Road. 2011, 2012, we put them on Bagathi Way. But we are still discussing with the ministry because, unfortunately, roadstud is not a standalone item. Therefore, we are still discussing with the government to see what can be done. And I'm very excited with what the president has said about manufacturing being one of the pillars. Because here in Kenya, I believe there are very many people with innovative ideas, but the red tape is what is making these ideas not come to fruition. For instance, if my studs, they're ready to come to a commercial scale. If I go to a commercial level, how many people will I employ? Anyway, as I said, we are working with government, to discuss with government. We hope something will work out from there. Now, since the studs were not, I was not able to, or rather the government was not able to take the studs, I couldn't just sit at home and do nothing. Therefore, I took paper, converted it to wood, and then I started making pencils from paper. However, about a year ago, as I was reading some journals, I was horrified that the Great Pacific garbage patch, the Great Pacific garbage patch, is actually 1.6 million square kilometers. If you Google it, you'll see they say it's 3 times the size of France. To our viewers, France is slightly bigger than Kenya. Kenya is about 580,000 square kilometers. France is about 43,000 square kilometers. So that patch is 3 times bigger, the size of France, obviously 3 times bigger, the size of Kenya plus. And what constitutes this garbage patch? It's single-use plastics. When you take water, when you finish taking water, what do you do with the bottle? When you use a pen, when it gets finished, what do you do with that pen? I am sure most of us, we throw away the pen. And this is a single-use plastic. And that's when I thought, what can I do to help reduce part of these single-use plastics? And from there, I tried making pens from paper. And I'm very happy that I've succeeded, I've managed to make a pen from paper. This pen, we've reduced the plastic component by over 95%. This particular one, the cover, once the pen is get finished, throw it in the garden. It will become manure. I'm still working on how to reduce the plastic component to 99%, such that it only have 1 or 2% of the plastic component. Therefore, all I want to say is this: believe in yourself. For instance, there are many things we can do. One of the things that I know that is disturbing us Kenyans is employment or lack of employment. Now, in Juja, what I have done, we have some piece of land there. There's a group of youth that got in touch with me. They didn't have a place. They wanted to farm, but they didn't have land. I had the land. I don't have the finances to use it. So we agreed. I've given them 2 acres for them to do what they can do with it. When I went there and I found the young men themselves digging, I was so touched, adding them an extra 1 acre. They are very excited, and I get very happy to see how the Smart Econ Farm guys, they're so excited when they're doing what they are doing that it's a joy to me. Therefore, what I want to say is this: it's very possible for us to be able to solve issues. Just think of solving problems and you'll be creating employment for somebody else and upgrading their quality of life. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anthony Ndung'u there. And for our viewers maybe who do not understand what a road study is, we have a picture of that. And you can see those reflectors that are shining on the road there in the middle. If maybe pick up just the picture for our viewers to see, those are the road studs, right? And this concept, of course, in Kenya was developed by Anthony Ndung'u, and you had his story after the demise of his brother that actually passed on through a tragic road accident. But this helps you to actually keep on your lane at night so that, yes, you're not driving on the wrong lane. Thank you very much, Anthony. We have Dr. Caesar Mwangi with us, who will walk to the podium as well. He's the Executive Director of Center for Personal Leadership, to talk to us about a humble beginning. What is his story? What is your story? Also, let's hear your story also on social media. He is on Twitter, AMLiveNTV is a Twitter handle, AMLiveNTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20505 our SMS portal. Beginning now, 5 minutes for you. Dr. Caesar Mwangi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Kenya. Very pleased to be here with a very interesting subject. What is your story? With a catchline, humble beginning. Now, let me first admit that it is really impossible to tell my story in 6 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a snippet of who I am and why I am who I am, in brief, and just touch on a couple of events that have touched my life in the past that have made me who I am. My story goes back to 1991. Nelson Mandela had just been released from prison in South Africa. He was a man who I had heard a lot about, and in 1991 he decided to come to Kenya. And I remember very well, I was a young man, and he had a rally at Kasarani Stadium. And I decided I must go to that rally in Kasarani Stadium. The president had invited him there, and people are going to converge there to see Nelson Mandela in person on his first visit to Kenya. So it was a Wednesday. I took some leave from my job. I'd just finished university and I was working somewhere as an auditor. And I went there, and I remember asking myself, as Mandela spoke, despite the suffering he had gone through, 27 years in prison, unjustly so, he was very calm, relaxed, and jovial, friendly, approachable kind of person. And I remember asking myself, what drives this kind of man? A great man with a great sense of humility despite a very difficult time. I expected him to be bitter. But anyway, after the rally, I remember going home and saying, this man comes from South Africa. I think I need to visit that country. Because if this man comes from there, I'm sure there's something I could learn from there. So I did not know how I was going to get there, but I decided perhaps one of the things I could do is go and study in South Africa. Now this was in the early 90s when there was still a great deal of segregation issues in that country. But I decided to apply to a couple of universities there, University of Cape Town and the University of the Witwatersrand. I was admitted in both universities. That was in 1992, 93. And I was ready to go. After I was admitted in WITS, I decided to go. But I didn't have the money. I was earning a very humble salary at the time, having just finished university and having worked a few years. And I remember I wondered, what can I do? And then I said, I have a few earthly possessions in my possession in the 3-4 years I've worked, and I can actually sell them. I had a vehicle which I loved very much, a very smart Mitsubishi Lancer, KYK 829. I still remember it. It really attracted the young ladies. But anyway, I decided I'm going to sell this one. And I was also thinking of building a home one day, and I bought a small plot on Thika Road in a place called Kawasukari and spent a few thousand shillings on that plot. At that time, I think the plots were going for about 50,000, 60,000 shillings. And I said, even this one I can sell. So I sold my entire belongings, everything I had, and raised a little money. And I remember my good friend Fred asked me, Caesar, I don't understand you. He's from western part of Kenya. And he told me, I don't understand you people from central Kenya. You seem a very successful guy, but you decide now you're going to sell everything to go to a country you've never been. Moreover, a country which is not stable because they've got racial discrimination. I don't understand you. I told him, well, things we can make, things we can buy, other things later on. And I'm going to go. And when I left, a number of people thought I was a bit crazy. In fact, I was told, why don't you wait for South Africa to have its elections in 1994, and then you're sure that the transition has taken place, because it looks like there'll be civil war in that country. To cut a long story short, I went to South Africa. My dear friends, yes, it was not easy. With the savings I had, I managed to study. It was a bit difficult. And one thing happened, I remember. At that time, if those of you who are there recall that there was no foreign currency in this country, there was no free movement of foreign currency. So all my savings had to be in the country, and I could only apply for a small portion. And the central bank at the time was very mean. They used to give people a very small proportion of money to travel out of the country. And when I left with that money, the bulk of my savings were left here. And in 1993, March, April, May, I remember, the Kenya currency crashed. Because that is the time there was the corruption and rot of what was then called the Goldenberg scandal. And the currency lost over 50% of its value, which means my entire savings lost 50% of its value. My dear friends, that really squeezed me and put me in a very precarious financial position. Hardly able to survive hand to mouth to do my studies, but by the grace of God, I managed to finish that. Finally, I then got a job in South Africa. I worked for the first year. In the first place I worked, I was the second African consultant in that consulting company. And there was serious discrimination. In fact, the first African consultant, who was a South African, left me there, and I was the only one left there as an African. Serious discrimination. I left after 1 year. I then got another job, 2 years, and then I decided I'm going to set up my first consulting company in South Africa, which I named Maisha Consulting, because I wanted to call it Maisha to remind me that life is an adventure which we've got to face head on and go for it. It was registered as Maisha Consulting, my dear friends. Maisha Consulting was my baby. I worked on it for 7 years, and many people told me, Caesar, you're mad. You're in South Africa. Who will bother to come to an African consultant? This country is different. You're not in Kenya. And I said, it doesn't matter. The worst that can happen is that I get 0 clients, and I cannot survive, and therefore I have to look for another job or go back home and get a job. Simple. Anyway, to cut a long story short, my dear friends, Maisha Consulting took off in a fantastic way, because I discovered that there were certain clients in that country who needed serious, good strategic consulting advice. We had a slogan which we called translating activity to accomplishment, and many people were busy but not accomplishing anything. And with that simple product, we captured the imagination of a number of clients. And in no time at all, we could not handle the business that we got, my dear friends. For 7 years, This business took care of me, my wife. We got one child, another child, another child. And life was truly an adventure in Maisha Consulting. And eventually, what I recall, by the time I decided to leave South Africa, that was in 2004, I'll never forget. I left, took up a contract in Ethiopia with a plan to come back to Kenya. And I got calls from so many clients saying, Caesar, why are you leaving? We want you to stay behind. But we had to leave for family reasons. My wife and I had discussed the issue of where we want our children to grow up. And we had to make the decision that we want them to grow up in Kenya. This is our beloved country. Our parents are here, friends, relatives. A great love for this country we had. And we wanted our children to grow up here. And we left all that to move out. Again, people came and said, you're crazy. Just one simple example I want to share with you of one fellow who believed I was crazy. He's a friend of mine, well connected in South Africa. We had become very good friends. And when he heard I was leaving, he called me for a lunch. He told me, we have to have lunch, Caesar, before you leave. And he asked me a question, Caesar. I don't believe that you're leaving all this to go back to a country like Kenya where you left because opportunities were slightly limited in 1990. There was so much corruption. It was a time of Youth for Kanu, 92, full of corruption and multi-party elections and corruption all over. Difficult situation for many young people. He said, why do you want to go back there? He told me, I suspect you're in trouble with the police. And if you have any trouble, any problem, I have a lot of connections in this country. I'll help you. But please open up to me and tell me the truth. And I told him, my friend, we made a decision as a family that there are some things that are more valuable to us than plain economic success in a foreign country. And we want to go back. And I have no trouble with the police. I have no trouble with the tax authorities or anybody. We just got to go back and do what we can in our country. And that's when we left. And I recall, I find it very difficult sometimes to talk about myself because I am still work in progress. Every day is a day to begin. And as much as we can talk about humble beginnings, every day is a day to begin. And I will not say that I am successful. We are work in progress. The only success I shall ever have is the success where I know I've helped somebody become better than I found them. And I hope to continue with that. And that is exactly what I'm now doing at Center for Personal Leadership. Anybody, any people, any organization we interact with, we want to leave it better than we found it. And that is when we know we are on the way to success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Caesar Mwangi. Inspiring story there. Lastly, we want to hear from Dr. Job Mogire, who will walk to the podium also to talk to us about his very inspiring story as well. From a rural, deep down, in the nooks and cranny of Kisii, he's become what he is today. I won't tell more of his story. He's here to tell his own story. And you've got 6 minutes beginning now.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to share a bit of my story. Just like all the other panelists have said, my story too can't be told in 6 minutes, so I have put it in a book. The title of the book is Born to Win, which is a twist in my fate. The subtitle reads, My Journey from Sengera to Harvard, which is essentially my journey from the village to the opportunities that God has opened for me. And perhaps if I could just read a few of the words in the introduction, the very first chapter rather, because it lays a context that will help us. So this is what it reads in the first few paragraphs. I was born a mistake. I do not remember when this realization first dawned on me. It was gradual. But by some point in my early life, I was awake to the reality that something about me was different. I was born in one village and brought up in another village. As my understanding of the world took shape, I noticed intriguing nuances around me in the way people spoke to me, how they spoke about me, and how they treated me. The nuances I picked alluded to my birth, my identity, my place in the village. Because I grew up in a conservative rural community in which children had no voice, I was not allowed to ask questions. In Sengera village, women had little say and children had none. Children were forbidden from questioning parents, uncles, and grandparents, unless explicitly prompted to do so. it didn't matter whether a child had been wronged or that the child had a genuine question. Children were voiceless little creatures, and I was one of those creatures. That's just the beginning of my story. I grew up in a village, schooled there until I went to university. Now, for high school, I went to a school whose name you have to swallow your saliva, sit down, take a deep breath before you try to pronounce it. I went to a school called Kerongorori SDA Mixed Secondary School. It is deep in Kisiland. The region I grew up in is very rainy. And because I was in a day school, I passed from primary school very well, but my parents couldn't afford it. Therefore, I missed out the opportunity to join the secondary school I was admitted to. So I joined Kerongorori, a day school, which at that time, now it has grown, but at that time it didn't have a library, it didn't have a laboratory. Only the Form 4 class had a cemented floor. All the other classes were earthen floor. I walked home to school every single day, about 7 kilometers. And being a rainy region, I was rained on over and over. And I particularly remember the most outstanding of those experiences when I was doing my KCSE. On this day, I was sitting the chemistry paper 1. I wake up at around 6:30. My mom has prepared breakfast for me. I take it and pick my clipboard and geometrical set and start walking to school. 500 meters from our home, it starts raining. The exam starts at 8:30, it's already 7:30, and the trek to school is a minimum of an hour. So I have no time to shelter. And that was not the first time I was being rained on, so what do? Remove my sweater and put it in a polythene paper bag and walk my way to school. By the time I get to school, every inch of me is soaked in the rain. I remove the shirt and hang it on the fence behind the Form 4 classroom, put on the sweater, and get into the classroom to sit and start doing the exam. But my body was so cold, my hands so trembly, that I couldn't even steady my hands enough to write my name on the answer sheets and write my index number and start doing the exam. So the head teacher takes me to the school kitchen to warm my hands and gives me a different pair of shoes, which I wear and then come back. About 35 minutes since the exam started, that's when I'm settling down to start taking the chemistry paper 1 with everyone else. And this is just a hint of some of the challenges that I had to face. The first time I handled an instrument we call a burette, which is used in chemistry practicals, was during the mock, the Form 4 mock, which means all the way from Form 1 all through. I had never seen it. To have the books that I needed and to get some exposure to laboratory experiments, I had to go to nearby schools, all the way to schools as far as 15 kilometers away over the weekends, just because I needed an opportunity to learn and to grow. And what inspired me was that I made some friends, a pastor friend and a priest, who kept encouraging me, and that inspired something inside me to want to go beyond the environment that I grew up in. I was an adopted son in the home I grew up in. And though my parents loved me, my father, my adopted father, accepted me without condition, that was not true for the rest of the village. So here I was living in poverty, but in addition to living in poverty, I am experiencing daily rejection, being reminded that we don't even know who your father is. And that kept hurting me until it reached a point where I realized that the only way out of this environment is for me to make a life of my own, to work hard in school. And therefore, perhaps I might have even performed better than my intellectual capabilities are, because the fire in me could not be put out even by the rain. I passed from secondary school, and my first job was to work at a nearby high school called Sengera Girls High School, where I was a casual laborer, and our work involved digging trenches and ferrying firewood, ferrying water, taking maize to the mills and bringing back flour, until I joined Moi University, where I studied medicine. I can remember the first day in class, people are introducing themselves. So I'm hearing, my name is Nixon, I come from Kapsabet. My name is Vonwix, I come from Mangu High School. My name is Justus, I come from Alliance. Then I stood up and said, my name is Job, I come from Kerongorori Secondary School. because I had not only a deep Kikisi accent, I also used to stutter. In fact, I used to stutter so much, my friends told me that I should become a rapper because of that. It was so difficult to fit into a class where I could not even open my mouth to speak, because every time I opened my mouth to speak, I am laughed at. I didn't know the difference between J and CH. Everything was Che. There was no B or P. It was V. So my name was Chobu because of that accent that I had. I worked hard in that school despite those challenges. And in 2008, when the university gave opportunities to 50-year students to go abroad for the student exchange, I was among the students who was given the opportunity to go to the US. And that was the first time I visited Harvard University. I rotated at a hospital in Rhode Island at Brown University, but I visited Harvard. And I promised myself that I would like to come back here, and eventually I went back. But I look at going to Harvard not as being the ultimate goal for me to go for, but that it gave me a challenge to reach deeper inside myself, become more consistent, more determined, and more strategic in terms of how I think. Therefore, I believe it's not about the end goal. It is, what does the end goal push you to become? Because when the end goal pushes you to become more, then you realize that you've actually not done anything, so that what you accomplish does not become the source of your pride. It becomes the source of your humility, realizing that you are created by a mind, by a God whose ideas never end. Therefore, when you begin celebrating and thumping your chest because of the few things you've done, you are insulting the opportunity God has given you. You are discounting the platform you have to grow and be much more. Thank you very much. That would be it for now.
Thank you, Job Mogire. Right, of course, if you have a name or coming from a school that you know that that particular name also is a Joe Cracker, well, Job should be an inspiration to you as well, that you can come from that teeny tiny village, tiniest in your sub-location or location down there in the village, but still make it to Harvard or any of the Ivy Leagues schools that we know in the world. We have also lots of reactions here on social media, maybe just to read some of them. We have, for Eric, saying very inspiring, humble beginning. We have Harry saying that this was the most inspirational story I've heard of late. Congratulations, Anthony Ndung'u. This is Harrison Mahinda saying this. Also, we have Jacob Abere Mtalala saying, Anthony Ndung'u is homegrown expert. I attest and admire his tech. Myself took admiration of those cheap along Mbagathi. I think that is Mbagathi Road he's trying to say there. Also, we have Salah Zawiti saying, great story. It's hard to believe what Prof has gone through. I'm inspired a lot. I have faith. I'll make it too. Kindly share his contacts on how we can get in touch. Email, Twitter. We have Jacob also saying Professor George Wajackoyah is philosophical and worthy to listen him always. Also, we have Joseph saying Wajackoyah is so inspiring, like a man with 1,000 lives. He just never gives in or gives up. All right. Then we have, I read that. We have also Jacob Abera saying, Dr. Mogire, young and vibrant, full of inspiration to us, from Singera to Harvard School. We have Samuel Oruto saying, the existing job opportunities create opportunities for individuals, create jobs, but most large industry and large-scale businesses are getting out of business, which serves as basis of many in job creation to provide services or materials. So both go hand in hand. And we have Adhere Kevin saying, Professor Wajackoyah has a riveting story about persistence and focus in the face of inordinate obstacles. As they say, luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. Truly inspiring. I'll read some more before we sit down and talk. Also, we have Ali Daib. He's giving a story from Wajir. Wajir walking to school every morning without shoes and tiny pencil that the fingers can hardly grip. I think we should get in touch, or you should get in touch with Anthony here for more pencils there, Ali Daib, but that is how it went for you. You say, Wajir, mine was taking uji as a 3 square meal, or a 3 square meal a day. And lastly, also from him, he says, Wajir, I don't like those who are busy pushing down, pseudo-hustling down our throats. Let's get down to business and just discuss this very inspiring stories from you this morning, beginning with Jakoya. We'll go back to you. You know, they always say it is good that if you've been helped, then you should also proffer your hand and try and make that other person who's coming through the journey of life, you know, cross over to where you were as well. So through all these inspiring stories and people who came out to aid you along the way, how are you also giving back to the society?
First of all, I have to be very thankful to the Mount Kenya community. A lot of things are said about Kikuyus, a lot of things are talked about the people who have stole the economy of this country, or what have you. But I beg to differ with them, because I am on this podium today because of the Kikuyus. They stood by me, they helped me, they nurtured me, and that's why I voted for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. It was not because I liked him or I did not like him, but it was a covenant between me and God that one day I'll give back to these people and I'll always be near them, irrespective of how other communities feel about them. Now, when I came back in this country, I looked for J.J. Kamodo, and I was like, how do I get this person? Then I got one deacon from Parklands Baptist Church, who introduced me to Dr. Kamodo, who took me to his father in Nairobi Hospital. And when I went there, I cried, and I took about 25 scholarships, partial scholarships, and I said, Mzee, I can't thank you more than this. This is the only thing I can say, thank you. And he looked at me and he said, son, I'm glad to see you. So during his funeral, when we went to Muranga, I was actually put next to the chairman of Equity, Mr. Munga. I sat between Mr. Munga and Milton Joroge. The other side was Jim Nambaru. And on the far right, left was S.K. Macharia. And the president was sitting with his deputy the other side. And when my time to speak came, somebody came in and said that Kamodo might have done a lot of good things and bad things, 70% bad during the KANU regime. But there is only one thing he did. He went and took this man from the street, who is a Luya man from Western Province, and gave him an education to where he is today. Now, coming back to what you asked, before I answer that question, I think it's better for viewers, and especially those people who have had issues with alcohol, which became a very painful issue in my life when I was in the UK, digging graves, Moist men trailing me, Kenyans in the UK calling me names because I was anti-government. I resorted to drinking, and I drank myself almost to death. And I remember going to rehabilitations. I remember people being very sympathetic to my cause, but what they didn't know was what I was going through, given the fact that I was in a land of opportunity, but alone, without anyone helping me. Thank God, of course, I was arrested several times, banned from drinking, and that's one thing that I gave up, and I woke up. The day I gave up alcohol, that's the day I was mad. And that's the day I had to climb the platforms, whereby I reached very far away and got a lot of financial aid, which I brought back in this country. Now, as we speak, I've taken to the university about 213 people. But what I've done is I've emphasized on the people from the pastoralist communities. I've helped the Maasai, and I'm not going to the platform where Dr. Mogire said that when you give something, don't talk about it. He was right in his own context, and I don't want to say or to mean what he said, but I have just to make it very plain. I have reached out to the Maasai community. I've reached out to the Turukanas, and I've also reached out to the women in general from marginalized communities. And the results are there. Probably one of these days you might want to interview some of those people. I've also reached out to the police. And as I speak today, there's a school in Narok, in Kajiado, in Puruko Ward, where I rescued a girl when I was in the US. I read the story, I cried about it, put something on the email, and 1 million was raised by my friends within a minute, and that girl is back in school. And I want to go back to that school. I want to go and ask the Kajiado governor what we can do. Should I bring opera to that school so that the Maasais could be looked at and done what? I also built up an office for the Maasai boys in Narok, those who are going to the university, to use that office for vacation, to train them so that I can also go there and give them a hand. And that office, I've paid rent for almost 2 years now. But the best thing I can say today is, don't let people build your destiny. Don't let words coming from people who are negative. Stand firm. Be who you are. Have your own truthful. Be truthful every time. Don't put ice on your cake. And that's why whenever I'm on television, I speak it plainly. Because if you have fear in you, then that means you are a fake. If you have fear in you, that means you are fearing for others. If Ruto is wrong, tell Ruto you are wrong. If Uhuru is wrong, tell him on the spot.
Thank you. Right, let's hear from Anthony. And you also being the brand Kenya ambassador of innovation and entrepreneurship, how did that come about? Was it because of this very innovative roadstar project that you came up with? And how has it also dramatically changed people's life, especially when you're talking about road safety?
Okay. About being the brand ambassador, in 2013, after Jubilee took over, I think at a cabinet decision or whatever decision was made, they thought it is best not to wait until when somebody dies, and then we say, oh, such a person was so good, he had this potential, he could have done A, B, C, D. So one day I was at work, and then there comes these parastatal cars with blue number plates, and now you start wondering, now what is wrong here? Yes, but then they told me it's because they've heard about the pencils. That time I was making the pencils.
Okay.
And then also, they had also heard about the roadsters. And then they told me they are going all over the country. And the ones who came were the ones who had been designated in my area. To cut a long story short, one day I received a call to go to the Brand Kenya board. I go there, and I'm given an envelope, and it's written Ambassador Anthony Kerori Ndung'u. And I'm like, this is not me because I'm not one. Then they were like, no, just open and see it. And then that's when I realized that actually I had been made the Brand Kenya Ambassador of Innovations and Entrepreneurship, and I was very happy about that. Now, to me, what is more important, it's, I always say, always try, and it's good that we have this topic today, humble beginnings, always try to be humble. Yes? In the sense that I should not take that and load it around that I'm the brand ambassador or anything like that. For me, I was like, now that I'm already making these pencils, what else can I do? Yes? And then that's when the issue of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch came up, that's when I tried to make a pen. And can you imagine, this is where I started from. Yeah? If you look at this, if you look at it, it looks what? A bit rough, so to speak. But I didn't give up. It didn't even have a cover. Yes? But then, here now, should we say this is the firstborn? Okay, not really the firstborn, but this is the first generation, so to speak. Yes? Yes. And here is
the final product.
The final, and this is not yet truly the final product.
Yes.
I'm still trying to improve.
Innovating and, of course, coming and developing and just getting some finesse on it.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So what I want to say is this. One, I think the government should have an office of, should I say, innovations and entrepreneurship that cuts through the red tape. Because it is this red tape that is making some of the innovations within Kenya not be able to take off. Yes. Look at a country like China. The country that is generating the most millionaires and billionaires in USD, in United States dollars, is China. Why? Because virtually almost everything is made in China. It's not rocket science. Make, you'll get the market, and you'll become rich. Now here we are complaining we are so poor, yet we have so many resources. If I may say this, do you know that Japan and is it Singapore, they've got virtually zero resources in their countries. But look at Japan. You cannot compare their quality of life with us. What's the difference? They've chosen to use one resource we all have, their brains. Japan is one of the largest countries, one of the greatest exporters of vehicles, yet they do not have resources. What is happening here in Kenya? All I'm simply saying is this. Let us focus, and that's why I'm so happy with what the president had said, focusing on the manufacturing sector. Let us focus on how we can get into the manufacturing sector and create jobs for ourselves. But then the government needs to come up with a way to embrace. They have a lot of, and which is good, they are really inviting the foreigners to come and set shop here, which is good. But also, don't forget some of us, some of the Kenyans who have potential to do big things. All multinationals were once SMEs. I read somewhere recently that Coca-Cola in their first year sold 25 bottles of soda. 25. Now look at them. They're selling in hundreds of millions. Yes, but they were given support. So the government should give us support, and you never know what will happen.
Yeah, let's hear from Dr. Caesar Mwangi.
Yeah, I guess we're talking about success, achievement, etc.
And who is a real hustler?
And who is a real hustler?
Yeah, how do we define a real hustler?
Yeah.
Are you all a real hustler? Yeah.
How do you define a real hustler? I mean, that's a very good point. And I'd just like to point out one thing, all right? We have to be clear in our minds what is success. Normally, we tend to think that the person who does extraordinary things is a successful person. But I want to put this and turn it around and say, the person who does ordinary things extraordinarily well is the hero, is the successful person. And this is very much in conformity with what I believe in and in what others believe in. And especially there is one great man who I consider one of the greatest men in the area of leadership development. His name is Alexander Harvard. He says all are called to leadership. Heads of states, school teachers, health workers, housewives, all are called to leadership. Because everybody has a sphere of influence where they are at. I just give a simple example of this young lady called Mary Waruguru. Mary is the lady who rescued up to 30 people in Solai the other day, right? We didn't know about Mary. But I'm sure it is not the first time that she has done her work well without being known. And I think we need to get back to this. And I'm very happy my friend here mentions Japan. Japan is a great nation because everybody does what they need to do well. The 130 million people who live in that country do whatever they need to do well. When they have a meeting that is starting at a particular time, they keep time. When they have to deliver a particular service, if you're a bus driver, you are at work on time and you drive that bus safely and make sure people are safe and they get to where they need to go on time. Those are not extraordinary people. They're ordinary people doing what they need to do well. And I think in this country, we need to move over from this concept of, I am so great because I started from here and I ended up there, and in between you don't even tell us what you did. You know? And there are people who boast so much in this country of how successful they are, but they'll never tell you how they got there. I'm so delighted we're on a panel here of people who are saying, this is where I began, and I went through all these difficulties, and this is where I am at right now. That is transparency, honesty. And these people are humble. And that's when I said, even in my presentation, I saw Mandela, a very great man, very humble, very jovial, very cheerful. I give you a simple example. When Mandela was president of South Africa, and the changeover was taking place, and Thabo Mbeki was about to become the president, there was a big ceremony to inaugurate Thabo Mbeki. And I remember what Thabo Mbeki said. He said, some people have been saying that I will never fit in Mandela's shoes. I cannot fit in Mandela's shoes. And therefore, I should be very worried as to how I shall follow in the footsteps of such a great man. You know what Thabo Mbeki told the people that day? He said, I do not want to fit into Mandela's shoes because Mandela's shoes are very ugly. And I remember looking at Mandela, he burst out in laughter. He burst out in laughter. Very relaxed, transparent, humble. Because he's a genuine hustler.
Genuine hustler.
He's a genuine hustler.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Let's hear from Job. And Job now is also the founder and CEO of House of Mastery. You can tell us more about House of Mastery. Are you still practicing medicine, or maybe you've taken also life coach as, you know, your major profession, or it's an alter ego?
Yes, so I discovered when I was in Form 2 what I was most passionate about, communicating with people. But at that time I had this challenge where my pronunciation,
Continue.
Yes, my pronunciation hindered me, and I used to stutter so much. My grasp of the English language was very poor. Whenever I communicate in my vernacular, Kikisi, I'm absolutely eloquent. I'm able to communicate very clearly without any problem. So it was a journey of me moving towards gaining the proficiency to allow me to communicate as proficiently as I need to be for me to do this work that I'm currently doing. So medicine has given me the opportunity to see human life from a perspective that I would never have seen it. If I could give you a very short story. On November 2014, I was in the hospital, almost finishing my shift at around 5:30, when a gentleman about 70 years old was admitted. He was a multi-millionaire, successful in every definition of the word, externally. He came in so that we can administer cancer drugs to him. I admitted him, and instead of me being his doctor, he started speaking to me as though I was his son for the next 30 minutes, telling me story after story about his life. Then he shared with me something that has stuck with me up to this day. He tells me that When he got employed and his peers bought cars, he bought a car. When they bought bigger cars, he looked for opportunity to buy bigger cars. When they built homes, he built a home. When they bought bigger homes, every single time he's running after them, until one of his closest friends married a second wife. And then he realized he was never going to copy that. One thing he told me is that he felt as though he got stuck in a rut running after other people and forgot to go deep inside and live some of the passions, the true passions he had. He succeeded in corporate and business, but he believes he was meant to speak to people, to train people, so that he would still have similar impact, but be at a place where he feels fulfilled rather than running, always trying to compare himself with other people. That changed my perspective in 2014, and that's when I shifted. And I even went out of the country to take a master's program where I had the opportunity to be in a place where I don't speak Sheng. I have to speak English throughout. That gives you very fresh training. So I practice medicine part-time, perhaps 2 days a week, maximum 3 days a week. But the rest of the time I am coaching people. I do trainings on emotional intelligence and on public speaking. That is mostly what I'm doing with corporates, with individuals. I run events. Every month I have 2 different events which meet up. I have an event called Own Your Story, where I bring together a panel of 6 people and teach them the principles of telling your story in a way that is engaging, then give them the platform. So that if you tell your story, how do you tell it in such a way that people don't have difficulty remembering it? What are those ingredients from your personal life that stand out so well, such that when you structure them in such a way that it's easy for someone not only to remember but also to be inspired by that story. So it's been a journey from being, in the clinic, dealing with one patient after one patient, to a place where I sometimes speak to as many as 500 people, as 2,000 people, 50 people. Yes.
Thank you very much. Even as we're winding up, we've had in this country, and especially right now, this narrative about the hustler and the dynasties as well. And I can see also John Gidanga here is asking, kindly ask, please, can you ask the panelists to define success? Does it always have to be associated with money or materials? If so, can we say Mother Teresa wasn't a successful woman? A probing question there. They're just very pithy answers from you as we're winding up. Let's hear from you, Wajackoyah. The hustler narrative that is being, brought to the public right now. How can we define who's a really hustler? And if you want to run for office, you also, you've attempted to run for the presidency, for the office of the president. You can tell us more about, do you really have the wherewithal? Does it mean that you need that particular money? And if given your humble background, then does it work against you or for you? Very briefly.
I think believing in yourself and having principles, just like what Dr. Mogire and the rest of the panelists have said, is key. A hustler's definition cannot be conjugated or promulgated into something that becomes very dilutive. If you're a hustler and you become a thief, and everybody now looks at you, pegging yourself with the word hustle and stealing from that person, then you are not worthy being even voted for, because you are suffering from the lineage of pyramid myopia, in that you steal.
That's and a very steal. Hard word.
So, lineage of myopia. You are condemning yourself, and because you have an ego, you want to go rich and get it very quickly, in which sense you want to have those around you to worship you, to call you so and so, and we see those things happening. I will never agree with those kind of people. Somebody like Njenga Karume was a hustler. He had humble beginnings, he worked very hard, and even when he reached where he reached as a Minister for Defense, nobody will know what Njenga Karume was. And I have not heard up to today that he stole anyone's money, or he was involved in the NOI scams, or land grabbing, or stealing from the poor. Those kind of people, if they were in China, they would have been hanged upside down long time ago, and that's why I believe in the law of capital punishment, where thieves should be hanged. They should not even be taken to court, because our judges have become some of the most corrupt human beings in the world. But I'm not going to devolve in that. Humility, humbleness means the you-ness in you, and I've spoken in a lot of leadership forums by the American communication networks, where we build a paradigm. So I would agree with what my panel's line of approach is, and I would really want to align myself with you. But let me finish a little bit.
30 seconds.
What have I brought in this country? I pioneered the law in practicing the law of immigration and surrogacy of which I'm going to learn a lot from you. I do fertility law, and I have not seen any lawyer in this country who has come up to define that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's hear from Anthony, briefly as we're winding up.
My definition of a hustler, let's say success. First, let me say it this way. Looking at this newspaper today, somebody has said 900 million, only 900 million is lost. Yes? Then somebody bought raincoats worth over 27 million. Those would have been 277,000 raincoats.
Yes.
When you look at this, 1.14 billion lost. Why is this happening? As Kenyans, we need to come up, we need to open our minds and start, when it comes to voting, we should stop thinking in terms of voting along party lines. Let's start thinking, who is it we are voting? And then let us not get brainwashed that with money. Because when people come with big cars, helicopters, and flashing a lot of money, we vote for them.
Thank you.
So basically all I want to say is this: we need to open our minds. Let's look at the specific individuals.
Thank you.
And then vote for them. And then finishing, I will not say hang people, because suppose if you hang somebody and then later on you find it was wrong, what I'll say is jail at least for 30 years.
Thank you. Right. Let's hear from Dr. Caesar.
Yeah, the story of success.
Briefly, 30 seconds.
Very briefly, I think success is the pursuance of a worthwhile ideal which you might never achieve, which is bigger than you, which is very noble and will be of benefit to many other people even after you're gone. I think that is what success is all about. And that is around the realms of country and community. You can serve your community and do it very well. It's in the realms of your family. That is very good, very important. And it's also in the realms of serving God. So Mother Teresa was extremely successful in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
Job.
I think at the end of the day, it's what emotions do you have after you have succeeded? Because many times we pursue things which, when it arrives, you ask yourself, is this all there is? I look at success as entailing two things. Number one, are you growing as a person? Number two, are you contributing value to other people? If you are growing, you are learning, you're becoming stronger, more consistent, more disciplined, and you are making a difference in someone else's life, then it doesn't matter how big or small the success is. As long as it's authentic, you are growing, you're contributing. That to me is what constitutes success.
Right.